Hello, welcome to SquishiVision. We're going to do a live reaction to the Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings trailer. Once I've got rid of all these spots. There we go. So, this is Marvel's first Asian-led film. Um, so let's give it a watch first, and then I'll give my thoughts afterwards.
I gave you 10 years to live your life. Now you see me rise. And where did that get you? You walked in my shadow. I trained you. So the most dangerous people in the world couldn't kill you. Son, it's time for you to take your place by my side. You better watch out, 'cause it's my time. The power in this soul mine. That's not going to happen. It's a new era, yes, I come alive. You woke up the dragon. You can't outrun who you really are.
Who are you?
Bugger.
Hold on, everybody! We make a good team.
Right, 3rd of September, not the 9th of last month. Damn American dating system. Doesn't make any sense. Okay, well let's. Okay, so first of all, let me just go through some of the facts of this film because I don't know anything about Shang-Chi in the comics, so probably worth actually thinking about some of that before anything else. But I mean, it's pretty clear we can glean from the kind of the trailer what the kind of general plot is. You have a character called Shang-Chi who was raised and trained by Ten Ring Organization, which we've already had introduced to us in the MCU. It was actually the first villains we saw all the way back in Iron Man. The organization that supposedly kidnapped Tony Stark was the Ten Ring Organization. They had the same kind of branding on them. Um, um, and then obviously we see the we see a fake Mandarin in Iron Man 3, which was a very divisive move. And then we got a kind of short film afterwards, which was I think called All Hail the King, where it was revealed that she was a real Mandarin. That's kind of where we left off the Mandarin, the Ten Ring kind of part of this mythos within the MCU. Excuse me one moment. sorry about that. Yeah, so that's kind of where we left off the whole kind of Ten Ring legends in Ten Ring and Reinforcing in the MCU. This is obviously kind of doing that properly because we actually kind of get an Asian-led story about it. Because obviously the whole idea of the Mandarin is very problematic, really, when you think about it. Because obviously it's this whole kind of see, I used to work up, so my words can be very difficult here. It's the whole kind of Orientalism, that's the word I'm thinking for, Orientalism, where, you know, because you're the whole kind of yellow scare kind of thing, you know, when, you know, the whole kind of racism against, you know, East Asian people, and so a lot of them and their culture are depicted as quite villainous. Good example of that is obviously in Flash Gordon. You know, I think what's the character called, Ming the Merciless, something like that. So the Mandarin is kind of problematic in that respect. So really, the only way you're going to do that story right and not in a racist fashion is if you've got an Asian-led film by an Asian-led creative team depicting it. So yeah, the plot seems, you know, quite clear. We have his character who was brought up by the Ten Rings and then decided to live his own life, and then they want him to come back and join an organization. It's kind of his conflict with that. So in terms of the character Shang-Chi, because I don't know anything about them. So they first appeared in about 1973. They were known as a master of kung fu. This is their live action debut. So their kind of powers, if I can find where it is. They seem to have some sort of powers and not just really good. Okay, powers and abilities. Well, so apparently, yeah, so Shang-Chi isn't actually a super-powered superhuman. He's just very, very good at martial arts, and being kind of one of the best martial art practitioners. And that's kind of his whole deal. And, you know, he's been able to take down a whole bunch of superhero kind of fighters. Occasionally he does kind of get temporary kind of superpowers. I'm interested to know actually if the actor, which is Simu Liu, has any martial arts background. Yeah, so the actor is a stuntman. So the actor has a background in stunts. And performs a lot of his own stunts in this film, which is obviously something you kind of want to see. If you're going to have a martial arts film, it's kind of important that you have a lead actor who can actually perform your own stunts. Yeah, so that's who we have. So we can find a good picture of him. Yep, so this is Simu Liu as Shang-Chi rather. He's been in a few stuff that I haven't actually. Well, he's apart from as an extra in Warehouse 13 or a bit role in Warehouse 13. He's not actually been in anything. I don't think that I've seen. And then you have Nora Lum, or a professional name, which is Aquafina, who is a actress and interpersonality. I think she's the character who's playing this person here. So she's kind of one of the supporting characters. Who else do we have? So then we have the Mandarin. So the actual Mandarin, not the Ben Kingsley fake Mandarin. it'd be interesting to see if we actually get a throwback to Ben Kingsley's character. That would be a nice cameo. Yeah, so he's the father of our main character. And yeah, I'm just reading here. So the character of Wenwu, which is the real name, is an original character to the MCU. So originally, Shang-Chi's father in the comic books was a character called Fu Manchu, which Marvel Studios apparently doesn't hold the film rights to, so it's one of the few characters that Marvel still don't have the rights back to, but also the character has very problematic history, so this is a way of kind of avoiding problematic past and using problematic characters and creating new ones to kind of fulfill that role. Apparently Wenwu has like a lot of different names in this kind of continuity, including the Mandarin. So it's their way of kind of not being discontinuous to the original source material, but supposed to be able to form their identity that isn't kind of layered with all that problematic history and adds more kind of complex and layered issues towards that. And you have a director who has East Asian heritage, kind of believes that the way they portray the role is kind of more respectful, which is obviously a good thing. You have a cast in this film. Is a few of the characters. Michelle Yeoh is in this, who I'm more familiar with her roles from Discovery. She was already in the MCU, which is interesting. She played Alita. Oh God, who I think one of the cameo appearances at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, when we see like the original kind of Guardians team, the Sylvester Stallone kind of leads. So it's interesting that they've recast a character who already exists. Interesting that they've cast it. It's not the first time they've done it, but it's interesting but it's usually they've cast a character. I think the only time they've done it is when they cast a character who was playing one character in the TV series, and then they cast her in a different role in the film, as it kind of happened in Civil War. It's interesting that they've done it here. Hopefully that doesn't take away from anything that James Gunn has planned for the Guardians of the Galaxy. There's also Zach Cherry is in here after playing a street vendor. I think he's one of the people we see in the truck. Don't know if there's a good view of him anywhere.
Who are you?
Yeah, I think it's this guy here. I think he was in Spider-Man Homecoming. That's kind of there's kind of like world building there. Okay, so let's go through this. See if I have any thoughts, but like I said, I'm not really that versed on this kind of. But I don't think many people are. But we'll go through it. It's obviously this is the thing, kind of revisiting where he was trained as a younger boy. And we kind of see that here is he being trained by this character who I think maybe is the character called Death Dealer, looking at the information here, under the guidance of his father. There's a lot of then kind of see the fight sequences go ahead. The whole thing is, he's trained him to be able to like fight against more powerful people than himself. This is kind of the Ten Ring kind of headquarters. We see all the Ten Ring kind of legionaries there in the uniform. Yeah, those bears in the background. This is a very Narnia-esque scene. I think the fight sequences will be really. I mean, obviously we will get glimpses of it here, but the fight sequences hopefully will be very fun, and quite naturalistic, and they look like they're actually. And I think as a martial arts film, and the fact that it says here that Liu had to do a lot of his own stunts and perform a lot of his own stunts, so hopefully that kind of increases the excitement level of it because you get to see the actual actor perform all the fights in the film. I mean, I don't know. It's also very kind of layered with Marvel's distinctive look and CGI backgrounds and things like that. I hope it doesn't take you out of the whole kind of feel of it all. That's a very Kingsman kind of shot there. A bit cheesy, I think, but hopefully it doesn't feel like what we've actually seen in the film. Yeah, I don't know. Slow motion fight sequences I've never been a fan of. They always felt a bit cheesy and gimmicky to me. I felt, slow motion, not slow motion as a concept, but slow motion kind of in fight sequences, it kind of makes it feel very cartoony because like you define kind of the whole physics of the situation. So I don't know, I much prefer it when you see fight sequences where they're actually doing it in real time and it feels more natural, like they're actually fighting, and you feel the kind of motions of the combat. Things like that, that's entertaining. I like that. I like watching like that kind of movement there and the whole kind of kinetic and the kind of sound design and things like that. That feels great. It's just like when it goes slow motion, it kind of takes you out of it. I like this shot. This shot's a pretty great shot. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not gonna badger the point. I don't really have much thoughts on this because I don't really know much about the lore. And we've not really given much apart from this is called the official trailer. Actually, it's a teaser, so I've kind of misnamed my whole video here. This is the teaser for the film. This is our first look at it, so we don't really have any more kind of things to delve into. It's nothing kind of because it's a brand new character to the MCU. There's not really much you can kind of refer back to kind of drawing a progression. But it'd be interesting to see how this character plays. Hopefully, this character is a success, and we get to see them play with the other characters in the MCU, and it helps diversify, for cinema as a whole and the superhero genre as a whole. Because I have a feeling that it's annoying because obviously our cinema is very Western centric. Things that have titles like these often don't do well for a Western audience because people aren't interested in frankly, aren't interested in widening their viewership experience to things that they're not being appealed to them, and hopefully the Marvel branding will kind of being a very successful franchise will kind of balance that out. But even the title Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings sounds very doesn't sound like the film most people would go and see, which is unfortunate. And obviously not ideal or proper really, because just because you have an Asian-led creative team doesn't mean you shouldn't do that. But Black Panther, did very well, and hopefully that's enough to change people's minds, and hopefully come and see this. Hopefully it does very well. Hopefully it's a very entertaining film, and gets a high critical reception, and that kind of paves the way for this to be a continuing thing, and then we tie it into the rest of the MCU. And I'll be interested to see how this film, which is very standalone, actually ties into that way. I mean, I guess Black Panther was a very standalone, perhaps I think maybe the very last kind of standalone MCU film we got, in a sense. I mean, obviously it had ties, obviously it had characters like Claw, who had appeared in previous films, and Ross, who appeared in previous films, but the plot was very self-contained. You didn't really see any previous Marvel movies to kind of know what the crack was. I think after Black Panther, you had the Avengers films, you had Captain Marvel, and those films tied in very strongly with pre-existing Marvel lore. It's supposed to be our first kind of original kind of origin story for a superhero, so hopefully it actually it's actually quite interesting, because even before then you think like Doctor Strange tied very closely into the whole Infinity Stone story. This is kind of actually this is our first post Infinity Saga film with a new character. Obviously we've got Black Widow, but Black Widow is a character that's set before that time. This is the first one post that time, post film Maybe it's set. Actually, we don't know when it's set. That's another interesting thing. We don't know if it's a set post blip or during the 5-year thing or whatever. So there's no clue about that either. So these are things we're looking out for in the future trailers. Okay, I'm struggling to do things well right now because of it being relatively early and I'm being exhausted. So I'm going to end it there. But let me know what you think, and I'll see you for whatever I do next. Right. Bye.